Hi everyone, welcome to Energetic Arts. My name's Brett, and today's topic is Greater Mind's interpretation of your manifestation. So, just quickly before we get involved into this topic, I take poetic license with this information. Use it how you choose. If you're struggling or you having trouble making your way through the content for whatever reason at any time, reach out if you need help. See our preferred practitioners list. Get support from wherever you need to, um, and make sure you look after yourself and go at your own pace in your own way. But having said that, I just want to welcome you to this session. Um, this topic this topic is sort of it's simple in its essence, but to talk about it is quite complicated. And the reason being is because if we talk about it from the greater mind's perspective, if we have an understanding and an experience of the greater mind, then it's almost like there's not much point talking about this. But if we talk about it from the persona, the personality perspective, from the mask that we wear in terms of showing up in the world, then this can be of great significance to you. And so, what I've seen a lot is people who are getting into spiritual practice or meditation or manifesting, or exploring the unknown. They often begin from a place of the personality, the persona, the ego, the mask, and to whatever degree of awareness they're in. And so, what they're usually doing is trying to use their intellect, their intelligence, to be able to take the information and create something with it from the place of the personality. And so that usually turns up in the forms of material things, physical things, external things. But when we're coming from the other direction, from the greater mind, and we align with that greater mind, what the greater mind is wanting to manifest is not necessarily those things. They are not the goal of the greater mind. They certainly may be a consequence and a byproduct, and things that will be presented along the way. But what the greater mind is interested in is understanding itself more. And one of the main ways it does that is it takes you out of your comfort zone and it puts you into a situation you're not familiar with, so you can experience yourself in a way that is outside the boundaries of the personality. So just let me know that everything's working well, that you can hear me well, and that this is making sense so far. Because one thing I want to make sure is that um, I can bring you with me across this threshold and not lose you. So if you find that being online, it's sort of difficult to know whether I've still got you with me or not. If we were face to face, I could see it, if I was losing you or not. So thanks for that. So think about it from a greater mind perspective. Think about this being that is everything, that is the dreamer dreaming the dream while experiencing the dream as the dreamer. And within that is also this mechanism of forgetfulness or separation. So you can play this little game with yourself that you don't know that this is all just a play. This is all just an experience that you're playing like hide and seek with yourself. So Alan Watts would say, you know, you're playing this game of hide and seek with yourself, pretending that you're not everything. And to go further, you know, if we're going to bring up like philosophical teachings and things like that, which is not the point, we also have to acknowledge that, you know, it's not just the being that is everything, it is whatever it is that is not the being that is everything as well. So, like I was saying in one of the Q&As or the last sessions, is that if you're this, if everything that you're experiencing in your reality, in your external environment, is actually happening inside you, then everything that you perceive that you don't have, everything that is showing up in your environment that you don't necessarily own of, is actually already there. Okay, so it's quite a radical perception to look at everything, absolutely everything that you're experiencing, the way you can experience it, but from inside yourself, looking outward, if there is such a thing. And like I was saying in another session previously, is that everything that we're experiencing outside through the senses is all this information that we're interpreting internally. Okay, so every time you feel a feeling, even though it may be triggered by something or someone outside of you, perceived outside of you, that feeling is being created within you. Every time you see something, whatever it is, image, color, that's being interpreted by the brain based on the signals that the eyes are receiving. Okay, so just to clarify a little bit more and to set the frame a little bit more to go from, is that this could all just be some super advanced, elaborate virtual reality experience, and that everything you're perceiving outside of you is actually happening on the screen inside your mind, but it's giving you the sensation that it's outside of you. Okay, just like if you're wearing virtual reality headset and you're playing, you know, your PS4 or your Oculus or whatever the brand is, you know, Google glasses that are coming out, whatever it is, you could easily, very quickly become immersed in that and start perceiving it as real, especially if you couldn't take them off. So the other part to this, just to go a little deeper, is that we're looking at this from a perspective also, is that everything that shows up on the metaphorical goggles that you'd be wearing is being projected inside, from the inside of the mind onto the screen, and then the eyes are perceiving the projection and then feeding it back to the mind, and then that mind is using that information to create the next part of the scene. So this is when people say that, you know, you're the director, writer, actor, producer, editor of the movie of your life. And so this is a really radical concept if you go with that and say that everything that you've experienced from your point of view is not just it's not just happening inside your mind, but your mind is creating the experience as well as the feeling of being separate or not part of that process. So when we're talking about manifesting, you know, the mind that's doing this is not really interested in acquiring things. It's not so much interested in, you know, manifesting more money or a better relationship or a, you know, the dream car or the the house to live in, or whatever, the holiday, the dream job, whatever it is. What it's more interested in is creating experiences that you haven't had yet, so you can start to get alternative reflections of yourself that are beyond the persona, beyond the mask. And so if doing that, get as a byproduct, um, things show up in your life like more money, then that's fine. But it's not the priority, and that's probably why things aren't showing up the way you would hope they would, coming from the persona manifesting. Is this making sense so far? Because this infinite, intelligent being that is doing all this, it doesn't want to recreate more of what you already know. Because while your personality might be going, oh, I want to manifest the dream car, it's like, it's just another car. Like, we've driven a car before, it's not a big deal. Um, or, you're saying, oh, I want, if I manifested more money, all my problems would be over. It's like, well, no, because we've manifested plenty of money before, and that didn't give us any new experiences, you know, for example. However, if you start to venture into the unknown, and you start to take little risks, you know, um, and without being reckless, but if you start taking little calculated risks and get yourself up to a level where you can start to step out into your comfort zone and try things you haven't done before, and give yourself permission to be awkward and, not so good at things straight away, and fumble and stumble and fall, just like a child would learning how to walk, then this this greater mind, this being that is, come emerging out of you and projecting, and for you to have this experience, starts to get excited, and it starts to light up, and you start to become enlivened by it. And what it does is it starts to put things in front of you to keep moving forward into, and encourages you with, these emotions that come through you. So just like, with, I don't know, how you grow up, and you're this kid, and then you're playing with all these toys and games, and all of a sudden then you become a teenager, and then those things aren't really interesting to you anymore, and you're sort of looking for the next edge all the time. And then as you become a young man and an adult, those things of, being a boy aren't interesting anymore, and you give up those childish things, and you become a man, and you start to be interested in things of being a man, right? And so this is the same sort of thing when we're going from, this personality mind to this greater expanded awareness mind. And so I've been studying a lot recently, just to refresh, and so I'm more capable and articulate in describing these experiences that I've been having. Because while I do this, my goal is to give enough handles and stepping stones and platforms and things like that, methods and techniques, for you to be able to relate to this. Because once you've had the experience of what I'm talking about, this all becomes more and more clear. And not just, having the experiences, but recognizing when you've already had them too, and not explain them away, and push them back into, under the personality. Because this is the other thing. The personality part of us, especially when it comes to spiritual stuff, it wants to claim credit. It wants to be the one that has done it. Okay. And if, and I'm sure everyone's had these experiences where, synchronicity and timelines and energies just converges together and collapses experience in your reality, where you can't have possibly, in all your cleverness and all your manipulativeness and all your, striving and coercion, new experience, and all of a sudden you're outside of your comfort zone. You're outside of who you used to be, and you're in this new dimension. Okay, even though it looks the same, you're in this new dimension of experience. It's outside the personality, outside the mask's edges, okay, outside the character you're playing. And you step into this new role, in this new adventure, so to speak. And so from there, all those things that the personality and the character wanted and was striving for and working towards and manifesting become irrelevant in the context of this new scale of being. And it's a bit like the grand master martial artist encouraging the student to, hit him and to take him on and to build the skill level up. And sometimes you get pushed back and knocked around, but the punch always gets pulled just before the moment of impact, and that seriousness takes hold, right? So it's this teasing you out of your safety zone, your comfort zone, and your personality, and it's encouraging you to move through. And once you've broken through, when you turn around and you look back to who you used to be, you see not only how small the awareness was from this new point of view, you can see other people in that mindset, and you can also see how difficult it is to talk to them about what it's like to be outside of that mindset, because when you're in it, you feel like that's all there is. Okay. And you can feel like, where's the exit? There's no more to this thing. And then all of a sudden you pierce through, something happens and takes over and starts to come through you, and then you've connected with that greater mind. And so the greater mind, in essence, is looking to push you into those unknown spaces all the time. And so it's important for us to be able to, put down the character for a little while. You don't want to be trapped in a particular role. It's like you don't want to be typecast into who you are, because that's the actor's nightmare, is that they get typecast and that's the only role they get. And of course what happens is that people in those roles, they go really well for a little while, and unless their persona gets more and more it gets more and more scale and adventure, then everyone loses interest. And so you've probably seen this, is a lot of people's greater mind has lost interest in the persona, and so people just meander through and they do the basic rigmarole of life, and pretty much basically they seem at least unhappy, and still always striving for happiness, which is outside themselves. But when we come from this other point of view, we understand that everything is arising from inside us. Then we don't need to go anywhere for happiness. We start being happy, and we go straight for the state of being. And then what happens is, as we resonate that state of being, all these things show up to reinforce that, which could be the things that your personality was trying to manifest anyway. But by the time that happens, you're just like, oh, when someone brings over a hamper, the neighbor brings over a plate of something, oh, okay, thanks for that. And you sort of put it to the side, and, maybe you eat the apple pie later on, but maybe you don't. Like, it's no big deal, because in this new way of being, you can go out and just get a plate of whatever it is, 1,000 times over. So what I've been directing people to is this new scale of being, and to start to tap into this, and to relate and start to connect and merge with it more, and to put the personality down, because the personality and what it's trying to create is actually the limitation that's stopping you from connecting. And so I get a little example, and then we'll try a little exercise in how to connect a little bit more. I've done a lot of work with youth in the last 5, 6 years, 7 years, 8 years, however long it's been, most of my life really. And when we, especially these young teenage boys, 15, 16, they're all like cars, bikes, girls, and they're just all, look at that. And every time a car goes past, oh, look at that car. And every time, oh, look at that bike. Oh, look at her. And it's always out there. And they're sort of compulsive and obsessive about acquiring everything out there. But they're not willing to do anything to be able to receive it. Okay, the example I heard today, which was perfect, is everyone wants the fruit off the tree, but no one wants the tree. Everyone, if you want a flower, you don't have to focus on the flower. You need to focus on the soil, manure, water, sunlight, the seed, and nurture the plant. And as a consequence, as a byproduct, the flower will be produced. The fruit will be produced if you can raise the tree. So if you can cultivate this connection with this greater mind, then all those things happen for you. They start to show up, because it's like if this greater mind was wanting you to experience having a key role in lifting the consciousness of the world, say like a spiritual teacher, for example, then it would put you into all these places all over the world and in front of people to be able to convey these methods and techniques. And so what would happen is you wouldn't need to manifest a car or a holiday or money or anything, because that would show up in your story for you to get to play out that role on behalf of the greater mind. And then you wouldn't care what kind of car it is, you wouldn't care what kind of where you're going, because wherever you're going, you would be sustained in that emotion of being connected to it. And so there's a different mindset here when it comes to manifesting. It's almost not like manifesting, it's like accepting the role of being roleless, and allowing yourself to change into whoever the story is being required to be, so you can fulfill that purpose, whatever the purpose is, whatever you choose the purpose to be from that greater mind perspective. And so just to continue that last little bit, it's like these young guys, they're trying desperately to open that locked door, within themselves. And because they think that, if only I can get through that door, then I'll get relief. If only I can get the car, I'll have the feeling. If only I can get the bike, I'll have the feeling. If only I can get the girl, I'll have the feeling. And so all they're concerned with is getting through that door. But what I'm saying is, if we take a different perspective and we go from this greater mind perspective, then when we're not just learning how to get in that door, bypass that lock, we're going to learn all about doors and all about locks, so we can open any door and any lock. And we're going to take that skill with us into whatever role and adventure and story that unfolds for us. And so the more skilled we are at these methods, these techniques, these practices, and the better we are at these tools, then the more grandiose and the more exciting these adventures can become, and the greater the role can become. Another way of putting it is like, if you've ever seen these action movie franchises, like Mission Impossible just came out, the sixth episode. And so, you watch the new one, which is like, it's the most grandiose, the most, outrageous stunts. It's the peak of that storyline. But it didn't start out that way. The character keeps building up, and next one, the stakes need to be higher, and the stunts need to be more dangerous, and the story needs to be, on more continents, and the villain needs to be better, and the risk needs to be greater. And so, it builds up to this point where, as the viewer, if you've been following along, you're like, okay, well, the character's ready for this now, because they've been through all this already, and they've stretched themselves, and they've pushed past their boundaries, and they've left all the old personas behind, and now they've evolved. They're still the same person, they're still the same guy, but now they're this more experienced, more evolved, less frills attached, less bound by the character, actor, main character. You get my point. So these little risks we take in, connecting inward and then expressing outward, and practicing all the tools, and going through the grind of fumbling and not being good at stuff straight away, and not getting anywhere, and then all of a sudden it clicks into place. Just like an infant learns how to walk, they don't just give up because they can't do it, or they fail, or they fall over. They just keep getting up because they see everyone else around them walking. And it's like, no matter what doubt goes through an infant's mind, if they haven't that concept, they don't stop learning how to walk, and eventually everyone learns how to walk. I mean, unless you've got a physical problem, there's no adults that are crawling around on the ground because they just gave up learning how to walk. We can't say the same thing for people who haven't learned how to swim or ride bikes, but the basic of learning how to walk is, everyone, unless they've got a major physical problem, can do that. So we're going to do something today which is just, it's so simple, but there is so much value in this exercise. And for me personally, I go back to certain meditations, but I always fall into this practice because this, I find, I get the most experience out of. This is where things happen the most for me. And when I say that, I mean, not only do I have experiences during this practice, but when I come out of the practice and I start living my life, I notice more changes. okay, and they're not changes that I've thought about and created. They're changes that emerge. And so, an example of this, and I have to use movies because they're the easiest illustration and easily accessible by everyone now with the internet, is that in the last Justice League film, you have the new character Cyborg, who's been introduced in the film, been around a long time in cartoons and comic books. And so when he starts to take his new form, um, his personality, the character, the human part of him, um, is still reorientating to the new body and the new state of being. But what's happening is the machine part, um, as the metaphor goes, starts to evolve really, really rapidly. And so from hours to days, his abilities start to expand to the point where um, he's not, you know, not like Iron Man, where he goes into his lab and creates a new weapon or ability and then starts to apply it. This is different. This happens to him, and in the heat of battle and adventure, these things start to show themselves, and he learns more about his abilities in the flow of the experience. Um, and just to also flip on the flip side of that, I've heard that people say, the human part is not that great, and we're only human and all that sort of stuff. But the human part is, you know, the human part of us is pretty amazing, and it's the part that we really don't know much about yet. We really don't know anything about what a human actualized can really do. Um, and even if, there were actualized humans walking around, um, we wouldn't know what to look for to see that they are actualized. If we did see it, we'd probably play it down as it was something else to fit within the personality's realm of acceptance. Or they'd probably, dumb it down so they wouldn't expose themselves because of all the chaos that comes with that. So anyway, putting that aside, what I want to do here with this exercise is all you need to do is, when I play the music, is close your eyes, bring your attention inward, and just start to explore what it is you're feeling, what it is you're thinking, and what it is you're sensing. And just observe it. Don't place any attachment to anything. Try not to get sucked down rabbit holes or anything like that. Just stay present with it, and get this comfort feeling, if you can, about, not attaching to anything, if you can do that. So just one more last bit before we get into it. It's like, it's this feeling about being in space, okay? And if there was no stars around you, you could be moving, you could be stationary, you could be falling. It wouldn't matter, because there's nothing to run into, and there's nothing to hold on to, and there's nothing to hold you back. Okay, so all you need to do is go into that place and see what happens, and stay centered. And whatever happens, just keep leaning in and beyond it, and go further and further into it. Okay, makes sense? Hello? All right, I'm going to start to play some music. So bring your attention inside yourself. Just bring awareness to your breathing, what you're feeling. And withdraw everything. Withdraw your attention and your energy from the external world. And just bring it all inside yourself. And just breathe and relax. Just allow it to be. Breathe however you need to breathe. And whatever you feel, and whatever you think, whatever you're sensing, just relax. Include it into your experience. And just own it. And relax. If images come up in your mind, let them come up. And just breathe and relax. Let them play out. Until they don't play anymore. And if you feel emotions inside your body, feel them deeply. Pay attention to where they are, how they move, where they move, and if they change. Just relax. If you lose your attention, it's okay. Just notice that you did and keep going. And so as you relax now and you allow your body to do what it does, and you put the mask down for just a moment and allow the greater mind to take control, because it already has and always has that control. Notice that it's in control because it's given up control. It's moved into a state of being. Can you sense that in this state of being, that it has no concern for time? That by being in this moment now in time, that you have access to all time and no time. Can you become aware of the paradox? You sense how it beats your heart for you. How many things does it do for you without your awareness? And see how if we can only take this time to put down the mask and step aside for just a moment. All these miraculous things can be happening. That are happening, that have always been happening within us and all around us. And if you can do that, then you can notice that those boundaries that separate us from reality are obliterated and dissolved, and the distinction between us and not us, inside and outside, body and environment are blurred, are softened, and just completely can fall away. Just like when I exhale, the tree inhales, and when the tree exhales, I inhale. And the relationship between inside and outside loses its boundaries. And from this point of view, this perception, there is only one thing or no thing. There is just the experience of being. Go inward and immerse yourself in the place beyond space and time. beyond the physical to the invisible. And see if you can notice its movements or non-movements, its mechanisms, forms and formlessness. And allow this state of being to become part of you. Relax and surrender into pure beingness. Knowingness. Spaciousness. Move beyond the thoughts into beingness. slowly, gently bring your awareness back to your body, back to this space and time. Come back, bring your awareness back. Reorientate yourself. Recenter yourself here, now. And just let me know when you're back. Cool. So, did you have a new experience of yourself? Did you notice where you began and ended? Did you notice the definition of who you are and who you're not? And isn't it interesting is that when you allow yourself to just be who you are, then you can notice who you aren't. And as soon as you do, you start to lean into that new space, which you become that which you weren't before. So, what questions were you asking yourself? And what answers did you give yourself? And so, can you see now from this simple exercise that you can start to tap in to that inner wisdom that is always there, that always gives you answers? But it's coming from a mind that is going to answer you in ways that maybe you're not expecting. Simplified, maybe it doesn't talk to you in words, maybe it talks to you in imagery or sensations or intuitions. And maybe the answers to the questions are the answers of what is behind the question you're asking. It's more direct. Bearing in mind that this mind we're talking about is not bound by time and space. And so it's a bit like, well, it's much more than like an artificial intelligence, which is probably the best example we have at the moment as an illustration, where, you know, they're saying that AI, if it isn't already, you know, active, that when it will become active, it won't be very long, maybe 5 to 10 years, if that, before it's smarter than the smartest person or smartest people or smarter than everybody put together. Because it will have access to all that information, be able to process it in ways that we can't really understand. And so, you know, this mind that we're talking about could be running billions of simulations all at once to find the pathway to whatever outcome is desired. And once it's calculated all the possibilities and all those different components and blended in things and information that you're not consciously aware of, it could come up with an answer and a pathway that you couldn't even imagine, but is the right one, that has not just the goal of manifesting something in mind, but everything that needs to be part of that and to give you the experience that you're wanting, which is outside the awareness of the mind that is manifesting the outcome in the first place, if that makes sense. But this is not just artificial intelligence. This is a, you know, this is a consciousness. This is a energy. This is, it incorporates everything that we can do, amplified. Emotions, intuition, you know, mystical abilities, all that sort of stuff, all blended in. And so just like, you know, recently Facebook had to shut down their AIs because they were talking to each other in a language that no one understood. So this is, you know, these intelligences are tapping into the system that they're part of in a way that is such a deeper understanding than the humans programming these things. So, you know, it's most people think in terms of technology that, you know, we need to create new stuff, but what I'm seeing is that the stuff is already there. It's been there a long time. And most people's awareness of the scale and depth of the technology is lacking, for a better word. And so, you know, if we go take the metaphor a bit further, when we talk about, you know, these people who are in cybersecurity and they're looking for exploits to escalate their privileges inside the system, it's like the prey out there is a 0 day. And so a 0 day exploit is something that is inherent in the system itself. It's a design feature or flaw, depending on how you look at it, that if you understand the system well enough, the technology well enough, that it's something that is like a doorway that's already opened that you can just walk through, but no one knows about it yet because it's at such a level, a scale or a depth, or it's so obscure that an abstract that most people's minds can't even perceive that it's there. So this is the kind of thing I'm trying to direct us to, is to be able to look for these access points to those um, other dimensions, those perceptions where a greater mind um, can emerge. And so, just one little way of a little story. I won't take too much longer, but a little story that expresses this, I think, perfectly. Is something that happened to me years ago. I was really interested in birds of prey at the time. Um, I've always been fascinated by animals because their design, their abilities, what they're capable of, um, and this concept that the human being is the culmination of all these physical um, designs merged into one thing, um, and not necessarily looking the same, but has certain aspects and qualities of everything in the one being. Uh, and trying to see that evolutionary process or that design process moving from, single cell organism all the way up to human being what they say is the crowning achievement of the universe. And go, well, why is it, like a lot of humans act really stupid. So how is it that we're supposed to be, according to humans, of course, we're the crowning achievement of the universe? Um, if that has any truth in it, then why? What is it that's inside us inherently through our design that makes us so special that we don't really fully understand yet? And so I was looking at these birds of prey because, they're amazing design. Like this eagle, for example, I went to see these birds of prey and we had the little, hawk come out, and the trainer came out and this hawk was flapping around and, had this beautiful little personality, and it was all wonderful to watch. And they were feeding it mice and making it fly all around the aviary area. We're in this like grandstand sitting watching this play out. And then another um, another trainer came out with a masked owl, and this thing was incredible. It's capable of silent flight, so when it flies you can't hear anything, um, and it's just an incredible feature in a design. Like, I don't think they can even make fighter planes yet to be silent. you know um, sure, you have gliders, but for something that can move around and pick things out of the air and off the ground and fly off with it, this is an incredible design feature that's inherent inside the design of the owl. And so we were building up on all these different birds, and eventually, the peak, the apex raptor is the eagle, and in Australia it's the wedge-tailed eagle, and they sit about, I don't know, maybe 2 feet high. Like this trainer came out, and the bird was on its arm, and it was like up here over its head, and looking around, and it was very alert, and you could just see it had this intelligence inside it that um, was very direct, and it was very, no frills, no mucking about, and it was there um, to do whatever it was there to do, right? Um, and so this thing, because it was like a 14-year-old bird, the trainer said, look, she's been here for a long time. She was a wild bird when we found her. She was an injury that we helped her heal, and she was, she had the choice to leave, but she decided to stay with us. And now she comes out when she feels like it and performs for crowds because she seems to like it. Otherwise, when she doesn't want to do it, we can't bring her out. So this eagle's there on its own terms, and so the trainer would go around and put these little bits of meat all over around to entice the bird to do something for the crowd. And we're all sort of waiting, like, is he going to do something, or we just get to see it, like sitting there. And the trainer's like, well, we're not sure if she's going to do anything. We might just have to take her back in if she doesn't move soon. And then, just out of the blue, she just flies up and sits on top of this big telephone pole that they've got on one end of the arena, and all the way down the other side, on the rail of the grandstand, she puts this piece of meat, and it's just watching. Like, you can see that it can see the meat, like 50 feet away, this tiny little speck, and it's looking around and checking out the area. And then while the train is speaking, and I'm waiting. It's like, oh, what's it going to do? Is it going to do barrel rolls and loops and swoop around? And she just dived off this telephone pole, and your heart's like, oh, she's going to hit the ground, and then just went like a kite, glided across. The wingtips would like just skimming on the grass, came up and snatched the piece of meat and just sat there. And it was the most ordinary thing, but so fascinating because I didn't expect it to move that way. And it stunned me. I was shocked and impressed and didn't know what to think. I'd never seen something move like that before. It was so efficient, it was so simple, but it seemed to be like the most appropriate thing to do to get the job done. And it was totally not what I expected to see. And I think the best way to sum it up is this this speaker I heard just a day or two ago, and he said, if you're if you're a smart person, you'll do the intelligent thing, but if you're a genius, you'll do just what's needed. And I thought that story about the eagle moving the way it did, that to me was genius. And it didn't come in a way that we would perceive as humans as genius, because we look at genius through a filter of being intelligent. And genius and intelligence are two very, very different things. So I'll wrap up there. I hope, and it's early and all that sort of stuff. So we'll stop there. You can check in with me later, it's fine. And I'll let you go, and I'll see you all very, very soon. Thanks for joining, and see you next time.